Good evening, everybody. It is I, your host, Tom Kaczynski, Coronavirus Central, Main Preparedness Edition. We got our first case up here. And now, can you guys see me okay? Hopefully, yes? I hope. Okay, here. Can you guys see me? Say hi. Hi, everyone. Awesome. So, good to see you here. I am your host, Tom Kaczynski, Coronavirus Central. I figured you'd have a little bit of fun here. You know, I really wanted to sit here and... Oh, shit. How am I going to do this? How am I going to relax with this? I have the beer, and I have the mask. I don't know. We'll figure it out. You know, one of the first rules of prepping, I did this for purpose of amusement, is you always want to practice your prep. So I actually am in my full gear. Mind you, I actually have this on here so I can look ridiculous if I need to. I am absolutely ready for tonight's show. Got my Tyvek suit on, got my mask here, got proper eye protection. You might laugh at me, but you know what's funny? Two things I want to make a point of this. Number one is that you always want to practice your preps because you never know when you might have to do something like this. Let's hope you don't have to do it anytime soon, although this is kind of funny. But number two is if I look ridiculous now overreacting, you would look just as ridiculous if you underreacted, and that's one of the things that we want to talk about today. That's so terrible. Am I back? Can you see me? Can you guys see me? You can? Oh, good. Anyway, hopefully you guys had fun with my little get-up. Video free. Okay, I'm back. I apologize. You know, I've been having all these computer problems today. It's been absolutely terrible. So, anyways, welcome to Coronavirus Central Unscripted. I am your host, Tom Kaczynski, now looking like a human being again, mostly, except I kind of look like I was out busy painting in the shed. I want to welcome you to the show tonight. We are going to answer your questions. We're going to talk about President Trump's press conference, what to expect in the days ahead, and I know some of you are probably frightened. If I had a little more time, I would have taped these in properly. See, I have the full gear equipment. I was ready for once, except for the fact I have this. So I want to say welcome to everyone for the show. Thank you for everyone who's been listening to the podcast. We actually really do appreciate you, and I'm trying to have a little bit of fun tonight, take the tension off, take the edge off, because it is a Friday night, and how many of us have been under stress, right? I know I have. And what I wanted to say was that, you know, one of the things I know a lot of us have had to deal with, I know I've had to deal with it, my wife has as well, is that we've had to talk to people who this week have begun waking up. You know, a number of people who are in this chat, I know you guys have been working on this for a while, you've understood the danger. We've seen the terrible events happening in Iran, in Italy. We've learned the lessons and we're trying to awaken others. And at the beginning of this week, it was still a joke. And here at the end of the week, I think people are taking it much more seriously. And sometimes the reactions are hard with that, right? Some of the people are upset. Some of the people are scared. Some of the people are frightened. And some of us who've been looking at this for a while have been, okay, a terrible thing is about to happen. Let's laugh at it so we don't cry. So if I come out in a funny get-up to have a little bit of fun with you guys on a Friday night, you'll have to forgive me. This constitutes partying in the age of self-quarantine. So here I am for the costume party, you know, and you guys bring your own best gear. Always a great idea to test your preps. Always a good idea to know how to do something before you need to do something. Because if the very first time you're doing something is when you have never done it before, I think that's going to be a major difference. So that's the first. That's what I want to open with. I'll talk a little bit about President Trump's press conference. If anyone else watched it alongside me, it was a strange conference in a lot of ways. It really showed that what should I say? Really heavily investment in the private sector. I'm glad they're getting testing out there, but the bottom line is, although we do need to test and we need to do contact tracing if we can, the reality is we have community spread, and it's going to be very difficult to figure out who has what this quickly. Hopefully they can get cases or they can get these out there, but it was a peak Americana moment to hear basically the president of Walmart on the White House lawn say, go to the Walmart parking lot to get testing for a pandemic. I mean, I guess everything is sort of ridiculous and absurd on one level, but that's what we are living in these times. Although, to be fair, there's a lot of space in a Walmart parking lot. I've seen them put plenty of big trailers in there. In fact, a lot of people in that community who go camping year round actually use Walmart for that purpose. So I guess there's some value in that. But the thing that worries me and continues to worry me is that we aren't seeing people understand just how important this is. And I felt like what we saw today was more market driven action than the idea of a mass action that we need to prevent this. And lives will be lost for that. And it could be the case, and it could even be true mathematically, that government has calculated that taking a week for people to get ready, to get their preps in order before the impending 28 to 35-day quarantine. It'll start with 14 days, but it will go to at least a month. It's almost guaranteed at this point. We want to have our fellow American citizens ready. And if you're in other countries, you're probably in a similar boat, because if you don't have your stuff, you won't be ready. And we've seen people are not ready. I saw a video earlier today from Georgia where someone got stabbed at a Costco for trying to get a case of water from someone. And Lord knows, I hope it doesn't come to that. But we are animals, and if we're not prepared, we tend to do crazy and foolish things. And hopefully we won't do that. Hopefully you can be prepared. You don't have to be as prepared as this. You could just stay home and have an easy night and let me entertain you and hopefully provide some guidance about what's happening. But it is interesting to see that the Trump administration, all these governors, these different cities are basically pushing the CDC out of the way. And one of the really terrible stories of this whole event has been how poorly the CDC has managed this from beginning to get to end. And I can't explain why they did it. I mean, Dana being a Lyme victim and us having some familiarity with them, it's not like we had high expectations. But conversely, they were not supposed to be this bad. And now we are seeing community outbreak. We're seeing it in New York, certainly, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, Houston, Chicago, DC, Boston, definitely. We're seeing it there, in Toronto, Vancouver. If you're overseas, any of the big cities, London, definitely. And this thing's going to spread more and more. And remember, what's happening in Italy now is going to be happening here in the United States in about a week and a half. We're going to have a lot of problems, and realistically, we're not getting in front of it. We don't have standard protocols out there, but the doctors are talking to one another, and that's been an inspiration to me through this whole process, that there have been doctors who have really been ahead of the game. There was an article I shared from the New York Post today where we had a COVID patient that was actually speaking with a number of doctors. This was a medical researcher, 32 years old, incredibly sick, in the state of New Jersey, and they didn't even want to treat him there for COVID because they're like, well, this has to be bacterial pneumonia. And he was showing, I don't know if we call it classic, but indicative symptoms for COVID, and he was able to get treatment, and he was able to live, even though he probably will have reduced lung capacity. And we reported on that's a problem that we see with this disease. So I wanted to put that out there as a beginning thing, that we're all walking into it. We're walking into it together. It's going to be ugly, and I don't know how ugly it's going to be. It really depends on your area, your healthcare system, and your own habits. The best thing you can do is sit on the couch and avoid this as much as you can. If you have a family, you have children, give it a week. They're not going to let them out beyond that. Go ahead and take those actions. And if you have to work, I understand that. But ultimately, I don't think anyone's going to get repossessed at this point. If you absolutely have to go out and you're in a key role, use optimum protection, get your mask. I have my little fancy one here. Put it on, look like Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? Rock your goggles, your eye mask, whatever you pick, because we do know this is aerosolized. For those who haven't been following along, who are new to the program, this can be spread through droplets. This can be spread through fomites, that's surface transmission. This can be spread through fecal matter. Don't want to know how you're making that happen? Put the lid down, gentlemen. What you're also going to see is it can spread through aerosol. It can sit in the air for 3 hours. And if you have any packages you have to handle, let them sit for 1 day. That's what they say. The half-life on cardboard is 24 hours. You let them sit for 2 days, going to be very safe in terms of opening your packages. So those are some things you could do to be careful. And other than that, avoid contact. I tell you, I had to go out for a couple minutes. I don't usually break my self-imposed quarantine, but I do go out in town for a minute here and a minute there. And I noticed when I was walking into town, there were a whole bunch of, I am about 200 miles from the Massachusetts border in northern Maine. I saw a lot of Massachusetts plates this weekend. And mind you, that could be because it's Friday and there's vacations, but they were trying to blend in. You could tell they had on plaid, they were trying to look like proper Mainers. But the wife had shoes that no woman in Maine could afford. I noticed this. And it was like a dead tell that they were from Massachusetts. And you just tell that they were like, yeah, this is where we're going to bug out to. So, and that's going to happen. You're going to have people in your community, and you have to begin planning for that. We've done that here in Maine, actually. I was talking to some of the town administration up here, just reminding them the importance of having food, of being prepared for these issues that are going to arise. And that's what each of you are. Whether you intend to or not, you inadvertently become leaders because you know something very important that other people may not know and that you are going to have to share and try to convince them to know, which is that COVID is real, it's important, it's dangerous, and a lot of lives and a lot of health is at stake. And the decisions that people make in these next few weeks will determine their ability to survive or not. If you have loved ones, family, friends, people you want, you got to convince them they stay home. STFH, stay the blank home. That's what you need to be doing right now. And we're doing that. We're making a big difference. I'm excited about the show. I had a great story. I don't think the gentleman would be upset if I shared this. We'll call him Hans because he's from Germany. He was listening to the show, to Coronavirus Central. It encouraged him to go out there and speak his mind. Now, he works for a big corporate firm, multinational firm, and apparently he's a person of some import there, not at the top of the ladder, but has a specific skill set. And he said he wanted to work from home, and they said no. And then he said, fine, I will resign rather than work if that's what's required of me. And they were so moved by what he had to say, they asked him to come into a corporate boardroom. He went in there into his firm. He presented the evidence that we've been providing bit by bit, case by case about what's happening. And that whole firm, which had branches in 4 different countries, decided to have everyone work from home for 3 weeks. How many lives were saved? Maybe 250, maybe more, because of those risk spreaders that were not meeting in a time that could have been dangerous, including in some cities, like I know Madrid was one of them, where there is, in fact, active spread. So don't ever think you can't have a difference or make a difference. Every one of us now has the opportunity to do something amazing, and that's to help people survive in a terrible time. So take advantage of those opportunities as they come to you, and that's what we're going to do with Coronavirus Central. I was sitting up here in a cabin in the Mains, in a woods, as they say on 4chan, and I was waiting to see what would happen, and I decided instead of waiting, I would help some people. And now we have a huge open source network that is putting information in doctors' hands and saving lives. I know because I've talked to emergency room doctors in major U.S. cities who appreciated the information that was brought forward from this podcast. Was I the one who found the information? No. I give credit to the doctors who were on the front line in other places. But did I make sure information got from point A to point B? I was the letter carrier. I made the delivery. And that's what needed to happen. And every one of us has different things that we can do. But think about those things, and I will tell you, those little victories that you win are going to be so important in the days ahead because we're going to see some tough times. I've made very terrible predictions over the last few months that we might see a death toll that is almost unconscionable. What I always tell people is every good act we do takes pieces off that number. So in my worst case scenario, I imagine 80 million people dying in the U.S., but the government has to do everything wrong. They're starting to step up and do a couple smart things. They're testing. They're not testing at the hospital. They're keeping people away. They're starting to tell people in nursing homes not to get sick. They're high at-risk populations. They're starting to move toward the understanding this is going to be a long slog that's going to take, many months. There's going to be a lot of logistical problems. So having Amazon, Walmart, those companies on board, yeah, it's laughable. It's a meme, but those people know how to move food a hell of a lot better than Department of Homeland Services and giving people food stamps. What good does food stamps do if you can't send people to go pick up the food? If you've ever had to call a public government office and you've ever sat in line, imagine the poor 4 ladies sitting at that office who you call, you have 10,000 people asking for their food rations. Probably not the best way to do it. So we're stuck in a society that's poorly oriented, but at least it's trying. We're trying to tilt the Titanic around, and hopefully we can. And that's one of the goals we want to accomplish. So I'm going to go into the stories now so you guys know what's happening up here. And I'll try not to touch my nose too much. Bad habits. Don't do what I do. My wife goes nuts. Touch the beard, touch the nose, all these things. Don't do that. And you'll do it like 100 times a day. Lord knows I do because this thing itches me. But I'm told it looks better. It makes me look older, more serious. I don't know. I feel like I look like the crazy uncle up in the woods, but that's fine. So I'm going to start by looking at some of your questions. Then I'll offer some commentary about what's going on, some expectations for next week, and we'll go forward. But I will say one thing before we go into this. I think we absolutely are going to see quarantines at some point, probably by the end of next week, no later than the time after that, if the government is serious about stopping the spread of this, and assuming that people do not begin taking the message for themselves. They're going to start this week by closing all the schools everywhere, closing the colleges. I hear that they're opening up dorms and hotels in a lot of different places, expecting this is where quarantine overruns are going to happen, especially in urban areas. So don't expect to be moving around too much. Start preparing now to have the stuff you need in place for a 30, 60, or 90-day stay, depending upon what your resources allow. And if you have to go shopping, don't go to Costco, for the love of God, because every single person on earth is going to Costco, and that's a war zone, man. Don't even go to BJ's. Don't go to Sam's Club. Find something less intrusive. Figure out a way to go get what you need and take an inventory. Take the time this weekend. Go do that. This is going to be your last chance to prepare beyond whatever rations the government will provide for you. I hope that they're thinking that way, actually, as difficult as it would be, because a lot of people aren't going to be prepared. And unfortunately, the very people screaming loudest right now, still at this moment, that this isn't a big deal, are also going to be the ones screaming most loudly for help. While that is not your responsibility or my responsibility, it nonetheless becomes a public health problem. Because if you have a quarter of the people in this country running around spreading the disease everywhere, this doesn't go away. Hopefully, we can educate people and that we don't let the politicization of these issues become the problem. All right, so we're going to say hi to everybody. So stress reduction tips 2. Have I seen any research on BHT as there have been studies including a title called Butylated Hydroxytoluene Inactivates Lipid-Containing Viruses? I have not. You might want to put the paper, if you are in our Telegram group, which you should be, t.me/coronavirus central. We have a subgroup at CV Central Research. Put it in there. Drew Pitt and the guys will take a closer look at it. At this point, I'm very fortunate that I have a lot of people who will go and do the research. So when I started the show, what actually happened was I was the one doing almost all the research, which shows the quality of the research. You can see there were 2 or 3 links. But as other people joined up out of shared concern for what they were seeing in the modeling of this, we've developed a much more effective staff. So I still do quite a bit of research and go in there, but a lot of the research is done organically within that. And then I will let you know here to do that. So good evening, Throttle Grim. Good to see you. Hi, Alex Hemingway. Glad you are here. Michael Kahn writes, good evening, folks. Tom, shouldn't we be able to mobilize factories to mass produce ventilators? Why is this not being discussed? For example, why can I only find one article about this guy? Michael, I think that is an absolutely great question, and I have 2 answers for you. Number one, it can be done, and I am told from what I've seen in some of these articles, given innovations in industrial engineering, that if we were really serious about it, we too could do that in a week. The problem that we are running into is that we are in a reactive mindset instead of an active mindset, and we are not going aggressively enough toward this. The government is responding to problems when they happen instead of anticipating them. They've gone to 3M, they've gone to DuPont, they've gone to the big manufacturers of industrial masks and trusted them to do it. I have no problem with using that institutional expertise, but maybe the government, instead of dumping $1.5 trillion into the market just to go ahead and buy another 3 days till the next tank happens with bad news and quarantines, could instead invest some of that money, instead of pumps into the Dow Jones price, into building permanent infrastructure that could be factories that could be used for the construction of masks in different areas, as well as other personal protective equipment and devices. I don't think there's any reason why it logistically could not be done. In fact, you would think it would be quite easy to do, given as long as we have the raw materials. However, not knowing if we have those, that would be a potential restriction. But if we do, and I will say a lot of our textiles also come from China, there's no reason we can't do that. And there's no reason we can't work out every element of the supply chain. And I hope the fact that there were all those CEOs from major corporations at the White House is indicative of the fact that they're looking at these questions. It does seem like they're looking at testing seriously, that they're looking at, places like Walmart and Walgreens, how you distribute both tests and foods and services, hopefully. I don't know how much they're looking at the food supply and the 4 key items that we've mentioned on the show, which is you need to have personal protection gear so that your healthcare workers don't get sick, and have them properly using it, right? You need to go ahead and make sure that you have the number of beds you need. I was telling a bunch of stories about how Boston's starting to build field hospitals in anticipation of this. And this is very hard in America because we don't have coordinated networks that are acting intelligently. And the CDC's advice has been sorely lacking. The main healthcare system, they're still working to get a plan together. They should have been working on a plan 3 weeks ago. Absolutely ridiculous. In fact, they should have been doing it 6 weeks ago. These people get paid to do this, and I'm figuring it out for free. All right. Number 3 is going to be the medical, the drugs that were out there. Really important piece from the Trump press conference. Someone asked him a question about President Xi in China, and there's been a lot of jingoistic rhetoric out of China. But Trump said specifically there were members from the U.S. drug companies over there looking about getting involved with the manufacture of drugs. If there is not an export ban instituted from China, and if drugs flow more freely into the United States, including specifically Trifonavir, remdesivir, and chloroquine, and hydroxychloroquine, we will probably be able to mitigate some of the worst habits. I've noticed there's a problem in the system, however, that they're telling people in a lot of places, not just in the United States, that what they want sick people to do is not show up. Instead, stay home, and then all these diagnostics are designed for that. But if you don't interact earlier with the viral load and you don't interfere with something like a chloroquine treatment, or there are other things that they've looked at, remdesivir, you end up with a lot more of those severe cases that come to point 4, which is the ventilators that you're asking about that we absolutely need. He did get asked a question about it obliquely, and Trump said they have every confidence they can build whatever they need. But it sort of seemed like the sort of answer he gives where it's like, yeah, we got this. I mean, I would love for someone, it would be really useful if someone had an interview with the president and with the administration where they asked much more direct questions that were focused instead of the sort of media scoring points questions or panic, we're 12 steps behind questions. I mean, the reason we get lousy press conferences a lot of times from politicians is the media asks dumb questions. And that's just the truth of it. And it goes between both parties, too. It's not a partisan thing. It's just they say that USA Today is written for a 3rd grade reading level. Coronavirus Central is not that chat and not that show. If you're listening to my show, I respect your intelligence. I tell you hard things, and I expect you to take it with the deliberation it deserves. It's kind of how I grew up as a kid. My old man taught me how to swim by throwing me in a pool. Today, they'd call that childhood abuse, but hey, I learned how to swim, different world, I guess. Okay, so let's go forward. Dana is here. Good to see this. Throttle Grim, what is with the ban of gatherings over 500 people? Why 500? 500 sounds like a big number. I think it's just designed because it's probably caught up in churches and gatherings like that. Most small buildings that have gatherings have a capacity of like 200 to 400. So this is designed basically to shut down concerts, really large events like that. But I do think that number is probably going to go down to under 100. We reported on a story on Coronavirus Central in Japan, how they have these undercover nightclubs where they go listen to some combination of anime and disco. Don't ask me to explain it. But this was really big in Osaka, and they were all crammed in there. One person got sick, and you had a whole cluster that ended up infecting like 400 people of these quiet underground clubs. So if you have gatherings of any size, you're going to have these problems. And so the 500 number is probably too big. But at this point, they really can't put more out there because people are so unprepared. I feel like they're doing is they're warming up the boiling water, right? They're getting it warmer so that people begin jumping out of the disaster. And we want people to jump out of the pot. We want them to go jump and hide somewhere, like I am up here in Maine. Okay. Let's see here. Dana, because of and even 500. Brittany, regarding your fundraising needs and inability to use Kickstarter, do you guys have a Venmo? Do you have a way we can privately get in touch with you, even if we have to send it via snail mail? Yeah, thank you for asking that question, Brittany. Actually, Dana, if you send me an email to coronaviruscentral@pm.me, we do have the ability to do something with that with a Venmo potentially. We can't do PayPal. I got banned from PayPal because I ran as a Republican in an election that Republicans didn't want me to run in. I'm not even kidding. It's a long story. It's not a very good thing. Yeah, I got banned from, just so you know, in case you're going to ask, I've been banned from PayPal, Patreon, GoFundMe, UCaring, Google and I have some issues. Who else have I been banned from? I said Subscribestar. I've tried a lot of them. I'm going to have a solution to this. I'm going to work something out, and we might have some interesting developments in that front. I don't want to put my chickens before they hatch. But the bottom line is, and I'll just put it to you blunt because you guys appreciate this, I'd like to pretend the reason that this happens to me is because, that the government's not happy about what I'm talking about. And I actually think Amazon banned my book on coronavirus for about 5 hours the other day. I guess they were doing a review of it and they decided it was okay. But with respect to that, there is a group of 10 people in Maine who are very much caught up in the old political construct of trying to win fights against one another instead of helping people. And they have decided, and they've said quite publicly, they would rather die than see me succeed. So they've decided they're going to use all their efforts. And we still live, unfortunately, some people are in the cancel culture where we fight one another. I am not. I've evolved to the culture of life of trying to save everyone who can. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. So I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of changing what I do or who I am. I just regret that their own decisions are putting people at risk beyond themselves because they're literally leading people astray. But isn't that the problem with this whole deal, right? That people want to believe fantasies. And when you believe fantasies, you can go along with that for a while, but reality doesn't care about your beliefs. The virus doesn't care about your beliefs. It doesn't care if you're Democrat or Republican. It doesn't care about your race. Doesn't care about your nationality. It does care about what kind of health you're in. And those are the things I want to focus on these days. So I'm definitely going to keep going forward. We had our best day so far yesterday, 22,000 downloads. Very exciting. And everyone who's trying to help me, we will figure a way. If you ever want to send something by snail mail, I'll just tell you it's P.O. Box 35, Greenville Junction, Maine, 04442. And we will figure a way to get around this. I mean, they make it difficult. They really do, but that's the way it goes. So, okay, let's see. Why don't I use crypto? Have you seen Bitcoin, man? It's taking it on the teeth, man. And I will tell you one other thing. If I get to 1,000 subscribers and I'm at 950, I can do super chats on here. So we will probably, by the end of next week, if I'm not mistaken, for those who want to give support and who show up to the podcast, we'll be able to do it through YouTube. So that will be very good and it will be awesome. So, but yeah, I appreciate all that. And I appreciate everyone offering their help, their kind stories, their advice. I don't know if money's going to mean much in the future. I mean, I guess I should hope it does, but money's been at the heart of this problem, hasn't it? That we've prioritized that all along over real economics. And I talk about that on the show regularly, that what I am concerned with is the economics of scarcity and need. How do we get food to places? How do we get safety, heat, security, those sorts of things? And not just what are the economic indicators and the long-term prognosis of, businesses against the yield curve. I mean, I could talk about those things, and sometimes I mention them because they're sort of interesting. But even today, the market went up 9%, down 9% the other day, up 9%. It's gone nuts. It's sclerotic. It doesn't know what it's doing, and it's just responding to pure panic and impulses. And to that extent, maybe the press conference today was good. It will calm people down for a little bit. And even if you have to catch a breather on a descent, if you're rolling down a hill, or an avalanche is behind you and you can tuck yourself away for a minute and breathe, that's good because we all need to decompress a little bit. Lord knows I do. Okay. So where are we? I'm sorry here. I'm coming up to see all your, holy hell, you guys write a lot of messages. Okay, so we'll just continue going forward. And I will answer all your messages. I will stay as long as it takes to keep them coming. That's fine. Do I have any demographic data other than from China? Everything I see is anecdotal on age, etc. It is anecdotal. I know that from Italy, they are seeing cases that came up earlier. They were older in the 70 to 80 range. I've heard of a number of cases in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, occasional ones in the 30s. It's too early to get the papers out. I would expect you're going to see the sort of peer-reviewed papers about what the Italian profile looks like of this and the South Korean profile of it around the beginning of not next week, but the week following that. And that's about how long it took with China. A lot of the papers we're seeing now that are coming from there are actually reporting on cases that happened in late January and early February. There's a lot of time involved in that. But the profile of this remains that, people at risk involved include those with hypertension, that's high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, people who are older, pre-existing conditions, and immunocompromised. Really, the nasty thing that I think this does to you is it really shuts down your immune system in a lot of ways, and then you end up with the old glue in the lungs. So you want to try to avoid that. And I have told people that there are doctors recommending that if you need to have something on hand that you desperately need, chloroquine you can't get in the U.S. Without a prescription. You can get in other places, but people have told me they've gotten quinine or quinine. Quinine, I guess is how you pronounce it. I always pronounce everything wrong, so I apologize for that. I read a lot of words, but I don't get to hear them because no one else says them. So when I screw it up, I apologize for that. But with that and zinc, you have the ability, if you're starting to get this early, to mitigate maybe the worst of it. And if you're a younger, healthier person, that's good. The problem is, as some cases are coming out, is that people are having long-term lung and heart damage from this, especially those with severe cases who are on ventilators. So hopefully we don't run into too much of a jam there, because at this point, like I'm saying, the real breakdown point, just so you have a number in your head in your area, which seems to be pretty consistent across major metropolitan areas in the United States. I can't speak for other countries, but when they hit more than 1 in 200 people being sick, and I don't mean severely sick, I mean 1 in 200 just being sick, or 1 in 1,000 needing severe treatments, that's when you start to see the overflowing of the medical system beyond the capacity. Because we basically, if everyone was sick all at once, and we had the 20% we've been anticipating be severely ill, and in Italy that number has been averaging, from what I've read, 9 to 11%. So that's a little bit better. Maybe there's a benefit to be had in that. I don't know. It's still early and they're still getting people reporting in, so I don't want to jump to conclusions. But let's use that number 10%, which is fine. We're still looking at the basis that you're going to have about 1 in 1,000. You're going to have 1,000 times the amount of need as you would have with people, and that's what they say, flattening the epidemic curve. You don't want to have all those 1,000 people playing musical chairs. If you can get that number even down to 10 to 1, you are realizing 2 orders of magnitude of helping people. I just can't get comfy on this damn chair tonight. I don't know what it is. I hate that I'm squirming around on you guys. I have the comfy chair upstairs that I use for the evening shows, but it's really super political up there, and I'm trying not to be political even by accident with this show because it's too important. So let's see. I was overall happy with the press conference, writes Brittany. And thank you for that question, Ronald. And good to see you, Karina, Kelsey, John, Plasma. Glad you guys are all here. Tab, glad you are here as well. Brittany, I was overall at the press. Yeah, it was a good press conference. I mean, it's fine. It's progress. Look, even like him or not like him, okay, the problem is you can't move people from hoax to panic without moving them between, because that fall is just going to drive them crazy. So the government has to do things certain ways. I think the fact that they were talking, and Dr. Fauci said this, that they were thinking this is going to take an extended period of many, many weeks, and probably 3 months in the best case scenario. It's something that reflects that they now have better understanding of what they are dealing with. I don't think they have better understanding of how to deal with it, to be clear. I think that's something that needs to evolve, and quickly, like Michael was saying, that we need to go ahead and be thinking proactively of problems that will happen. And I'd rather overproduce and have too much of something than underproduce. And the fact that we look at these economic things as being structured by what businesses can do and what we can spend as government is kind of ridiculous, considering we have a bank that's basically been holding the print button down for the better part of the year. So hopefully we will do that. And let's see. Kelsey tells me people are going insane in Washington. I'm sure you are. I've heard that the overrun of the hospital system is going to happen roughly next week, given the saturation. And remember, the other problem we have is we talk about personal protection gear, but we aren't talking about the question of healthcare workers and their psychology and their ability to go. You can't have these people go 24/7 all the time, especially if some are going to get sick, and have them function well. When people's health starts breaking down, that's when they'll get sick, even if they have protection from various different illnesses. Even when they go home, they will be weakened. And so they're going to have to think very carefully about not overworking people. And what the balance is, that's something that'll be very difficult to find, but you don't want to have heroes at their own consequence. You have to be very smart about that. Brittany writes, happy to see private and public sectors join forces and government catch up to reality. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, everyone needs to be on deck with this. It needs to be transpartisan, international, cooperative, corporate. And to be honest, a lot of people, and I've been arguing for sort of big government solutions, right? Just say build this. But in World War II, we have a model that worked. The government went to the factory, said, this is what we need. You build it the fastest way. We will throw money at you. Right now, the government has been saying to the factories, what do you need to make this commercially viable? That's the wrong question. The government needs to go with them and say, here's the list. How much will it cost for you to make it as fast as possible? And then write the damn check. And just do it that way. That's all you got to do. And that's how the public and private sector can work together. Hopefully that will work well. The only thing I'm a little sketchy about is we're going to be giving a lot of data to Google. I'm not a big Google fan. I understand what's happening. I'm going to look past that, but just one of those things that, personally, because I know I look up search engine results in Google compared to other places, and they have funny ways of putting things. But hey, we're going to have to trust people. Hopefully, they won't be evil. I haven't been evil to either. Some people look at me that way. We have to all give each other a chance, and I think that's important. Because if we don't, we'll never get along, and that's all I'm asking, man. That's all we could ask. Stabbed at Costco, I know, it's right. Says good to see you. S70, good to see you, Anthony. Here, shut up. Okay. But Chicago's area stores that closed by me looked at Black Friday. Oh yeah, I believe that. Chicago's going to be crazy when that happens, man. And the problem is, I really pray that people aren't just depending on the government to take care of them, especially west of Chicago. That's going to be a bad situation if that goes that way. In the South Side and different areas. I know a little bit about Chicago. I have a chance to visit there a few times. The good news is you don't have the New York problem and the Boston problem being too far from your food. Your food's close to you. The bad news is that, the level of violence that happens in Chicago on a daily basis is pretty frightful to begin with. So I hope it doesn't get worse for y'all. But hopefully that works out. So let's see. I'm an autoimmune patient, Northwestern Hospital. Got a lot of inside info from the MD, and if you guys ever get tips, by the way, I actually use them. I don't ever give up sources or names unless I'm allowed to do so. But send them to @coronaviruscentral, coronaviruscentral @pm.me, or find me @coronaviruscast on Twitter. Whatever you want to deal with, that's all good here. All right, Rev Match. Good to see you here. I'm in LA. People are still out on the street, but less cars than before. Stores are running out of supplies. Well, I'm glad to hear that there's fewer people out. And hopefully they're preparing and they're getting ready for a long time staying in. I'm going to be here with you. We are going to be, putting all this information out for you and having a very good time. Fear Blonde Rents, you and JF are both on. Well, I'm a big fan of JF, and we get along very well with each other. I just do this on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 7 p.m. And the biggest reason is because I'm an old man and I like to go to sleep early, but I want to be late enough so that everyone can hear it. And I just got in the habit of doing it. I used to do a show on Facebook. Let's see. Karina writes, good to see you, Karina, by the way. Police had to mediate a Clorox wipe distribution at Costco in Western Mass. Man, I've been in Western Mass too. Springfield is kind of a tough town. To be honest with you, do not get yourself thrown in jail fighting over a supply at this point. Honestly, whatever it is, it's not worth it. There is nothing out there. Unless they're starting to give out an actual cure for this thing, you can get an alternative. People are rushing around for toilet paper, whatever it is. It's like I was telling people, the next aisle has tissues. Those work. Or if you really have to find something. One thing, if you're really on a toilet paper paranoid level, right? And I'll give you a pro tip. Go to a place like an Office Depot, Office Supply, something like that. They sell big industrial rolls. You can go buy them. It's just that people are all going for the same solution at the same time. It just goes to show you the old story. If everyone jumps off a bridge, would you do it? Well, it turns out evolutionarily, the psychological answer for most people is yes, because we assume that if everyone else is doing something, we should do it. One of the things I love to do with the show and with a lot of people who come from very different backgrounds and different assumptions is learning to get around that and to learn to analyze data critically and draw your own conclusions. For a very long time, we've lived in a country where we've been spoon-fed what we're supposed to think, what we're supposed to do, what we're allowed to think, and what we're allowed to do. And that sort of thinking would get you killed potentially in this crisis. Let's hope it doesn't. But you'll notice that those of us who listen to this show, and you can see my growing army of followers on Twitter as example of this, are now in a position where they don't have to worry about those things, not because I gave them special information, but because I helped educate people on a better way to think about problems in our lives that has value not just in the coronavirus, but it has value for everything that you do, that you critically analyze it, and you don't be afraid to say what's true. Are there consequences to speaking truth? Absolutely. I've paid them my whole life. Nonetheless, it's the only way you could actually solve problems, and it will, in the longer term, keep you alive. It might not make you liked, it might not make you loved, but it will make you a better person. And frankly, you have to live with yourself much more than anyone else. You'll come to like it, and you'll respect yourself better. All right, what do we got here? Anthony, California traveling, please be minimal as a possible huge community with people indoors unknown, or excuse me, unknown spreading the virus. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. Don't go where everyone else is. If you have to go out, and that's fine, I get it. You do have to do that. Don't go where others are. Don't go where others have been, and cover your mouth. The biggest thing, I mean, the goggles are good, but the mask is even more important, statistically speaking, of how you're likely to get infected. So find something, even if you have to find. I mean, you're going to laugh at me, but you would be better served to go ahead and have a paper plate over your face than nothing. And that's ridiculous. But I tell you, there's this great video. Maybe Dana will share the link of this viral video of this black lady in Memphis. And, we could laugh at her. She has bags from Dollar General on her hands and on her feet. And she's like, I'm not going to get sick. I'm going to die from this. But nonetheless, she's actually showing a good survival mechanism. She's looking at her environment. She's seeing what's there. Her environment may not be resource rich, but her instinct to actually work towards survival is good. And this is one of the things that's going to be challenging for the brains who are in this show. We have to learn to embrace our instincts when they serve our self-preservation and not our mindset. So when you see all those people out there going out there and saying, well, this is terrible because it's bad for the economy, it's bad for globalization, it's bad for identity relationships, it's bad for these things. Don't worry about that crap. All of that's not going to matter in about 2 weeks. The people who were maddest at you are going to be your biggest friends and supporters, like with me, because you're keeping them alive. And a lot of the people in America, a lot of the people who've dominated the cultural conversation are people who have placed care above consequence. The virus is going to flip the need of that relationship around. And the truth is you need both. It's part of a healthy society to not have these be fighting against one another. Why that happens, we've talked about, not important for tonight. But what is important is that you put consequences first now, and that will allow you to care more effectively for your loved ones, yourself, and whomever you put within your circle. Keep in mind this, though, for the ones who are more pragmatic out there and not driven by altruism, the more people who don't have problems, the more threats you don't have to deal with. That's the reason for helping your community if you're an utter stone-cold sociopathic pragmatist. Let's see. Okay, you guys are talking there. Throttle Grim. Australian supermarkets placing limits on flour, rice, tissues, paper towels. Got to get your beans, man. Get in front of it. And look, there's even if you're going around with other canned foods, I mean, you just want to have something that's shelf stable enough to make it 6 months. Most foods are, I mean, unless they're unless you have things that are like produce and stuff like that, those are going to be problems. But even meat, you can keep that in the freezer. There's a lot of different options you can do here. So, Alex, you're in Cali. Good to hear that. Creepy, wondering who has it yet. Nobody community claiming it. Neighbor has cold, feeling better, keeping distance regardless. So, right, let me share a little story. How many of you have had that moment? And I had this moment last month. I had to go to Walmart. There was a terrible blizzard in Maine, right? And this was like mid-February. I freaked out before all you guys were even looking at this. Not all of you, but most of you. So I went in the middle of the blizzard, which in Maine can be a challenge because I'm like, all right, no one's going to be at Wally World. I can do this. I'm going to go out there and get this. And like, I was having that moment where I was hyper aware of every cough, every sniffle, every person. I'm looking around. Someone's in an aisle. I went ahead, looked the long way around. And, this was about 8 p.m. Walmart's closed at 10 in Maine. So I'm around there walking around. I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm going to go through. And it's nerve-wracking, right? Because you wonder, everyone's a threat. Everyone's a danger. But that's what preparedness does. I might look like an idiot in this getup, and I'm aware of that. But nonetheless, I'm a safe idiot. And that's what you need to do. You need to get past the expectations that you have of what was before and begin adapting to the new world. And the good news is the best adaptation humanity has in order to deal with all the things we process is we forget. We forget things, we get past them. Some things we forgive, a lot of things we forget. And then you can deal with difficult situations, like going to do shopping right now. It would scare the hell out of me to go some places. And statistically speaking, let's say 100,000 people in the United States had this. I don't actually think the number's that high, but I'm just using that as a baseline number. So, or let's use a better number. Let's use the number 33,000, which is actually a practical sort of number, right? So 330,000. 3.3 million, 33. So you're talking about still a 1 in 10,000 chance of getting this, right? If you are running around. And mind you, some areas have greater density. But if I told you were going to have to do something where you had 0.99995 chance of succeeding, you would probably feel okay. Now, mind you, that is advancing rapidly, and it could be different in your areas. So what I'm saying is don't panic, be smart, prepare, know these events are out there. But remember, we're still early in what's going to be a long process. Um, how early, I don't know, because like I said, if it's exponential, if you take 33,000 and you double it, just a few times, it's real easy to get into those hundreds of thousands. And when you get to at the point that the United States, under my estimation, has about 1.6 million cases, which I'm just going to do a little bit of math here on the computer because that is what we do on the show. We do interesting things like that. So let's just do times 2. I'll predict how long we are until we're really in the crap. 8, 16, 20, 24. So if my math is right, between 24, depending on your mathematical modeling, between 24 to 32 days from now, we're going to start dealing with the medical supply overrun. If there are quarantines in place, if people don't edit their behavior, and mind you, we're probably 12 days into that 24-day spread because there are asymptomatic carriers that are going to increase the caseload. So maybe we move it forward a little bit. 20 to 30 days from now is when the problem is going to become really obvious countrywide. Now, mind you, the hospitals will be filling up well before that. You'll start to see that in a nationwide level 10 to 14 days from now, which is why I'm anticipating we will see quarantines before then. But what you will start to see about, let's call it the second week of April, that you'll start to see that's when you'll see the crises. And it'll happen in an unbalanced way. So certain cities will be in problems first. So you'll start to see the tells as early as the last week of March about certain medical systems being overrun. Can we flatten the epidemic curve? We have to. You start making it where that doubling happens every 10 days, then you're going to have things solved. Here's the government's problem and why it's hard for them to do that. That means we have to all sit at home and wait. And they want us to get back to work, not just because of money, but because how are you going to get goods and services moving? So this is one of the problems we have. This is why the United Kingdom has been out there saying, we're just going to let it blow through. They are betting they're better off losing 10% of their population to this potentially than they are going 6 months trying to feed themselves without having people at work. And that's not a crazy decision because if you start having civil disorder in the middle of a pandemic, all quarantines are gone, COVID runs roughshod over your country, so then you get the economic dislocation. At the same time, you get the death rate from that, as well as what other diseases will go around. These things do happen. It's a hard choice and a hard decision, but we as people have to figure out a way to get around it, and that's why we have to help one another. Now, look, if Mad Max World comes, you can already see I got my get up, I'm in the woods, I got friends, I'll be fine. And you may be too, or you may not be. But I don't really want to see that happen. And I don't think any of you do, because that world, as interesting as it might be in some ways, is going to be an utter train wreck for quite a while. We could learn from logic and experience of other countries, what Iran has experienced, what they're experiencing, which in some ways is moving towards societal collapse. They've lost like 10% of their government. Or we could do things better. It's up to us. But the longer we wait to do things that are painful, the higher the amount of pain we're going to see. And thank you for everyone who's here with me tonight. I noticed that people are sticking around. We're definitely going to go through. I'm going to get to all your questions. I'm just sharing some information. And hopefully I'm covering questions you have, putting some of my thoughts. One of the things about all my shows is the audience is always a big element of it. So whatever you guys have to say, I always integrate that. And we always are, even when I'm on the air, I'm thinking out loud because you guys sit there and listen to me for 2 hours while I'm sitting there opining on things. We'll see what tomorrow's show looks like. Probably won't be super long because I have an interview at 10 a.m. Eastern on radio that I have to do. And if you have, actually, one other thing, please include in the chat because you'll be doing me a favor. Let me know some topics that would be relatively easy to research that you might want in there. And if I see one where I have a really nice piece of information, I like to check the sort of odds and ends on the weekend shows, and I'll do that because that's something I want to share with you. And we'll have to talk about the Trump thing. And it's hard because half my audience hates him and half my audience loves him. And I just want to talk about the policy at this point. At this point, that's all that matters to me. It's all what I will allow to matter to me. Because if I made it about other things, I would be sitting up here just doing nothing. And I don't want to do that. Okay, still seeing pics of 30-somethings outside of China, and yet someone says it's the elderly. Is this shitty reporting or real? Can't find actual data outside of the China WHO report. There are young people getting sick. Keep in mind, a mild case still means you get really awful pneumonia. The case of, I think his name's Jason Kai, C-A-I. I don't know if that's pronounced right. You can read what he experienced as an interesting tale in that New York Post story about there. Tab, I'm in New York. Things are crazy here. Thankfully, I've been prepared since before it got too insane at the stores. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I don't know if you're in New York City. New York City's going to be a mess. I mean, New York City has to have a lot of things go right to function that are independently, not coordinated. And I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I mean, they might have to literally, like if I was doing it, I would never want to be mayor of New York. But if I was mayor of New York, I would literally dedicate subway cars running from like north of the city or maybe, off one of the railroads to go up into, well, Hudson River Valley has problems and like literally make them food supplies coming in. In fact, that's actually a brilliant idea. De Blasio should do that. I should be a consultant do this. Corporations can hire me. In fact, if there's any corporate people out here and you want to help and write a big check so I can sit here and opine all day and do what I enjoy doing, being helpful as a consultant, go ahead and we'll figure out ways to get solutions to what you need. But that's how you have to think. What is my problem and what are my vulnerabilities? What's it called? It's a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, attributes, and or opportunities and threats. SWOT, right? So your strengths are what have you prepared with, what skills do you have. Your weaknesses is what can't you control, how can you mitigate those risks. Opportunities, how can you bring others along to be successful with you. And threats, everything you can't predict, including the virus. And in the threat category, what I've said from moment one is that the virus has to be number one in the threats because we still don't know what the hell this is. I mean, I was reading on air today about the Iranian burial grounds, right? They have these huge fields you can see from space of people they're burying. And I was reading they were liming the earth because they didn't want to have this spread in the soil. And someone suggested, wisely, I think it might have been sewage, but I'm like, is this infecting a bacteria? Do we have something coming up through the ground to get us? I'm feeling like I'm Bruce Campbell or something. But I mean, I'm asking the questions because we don't know what we don't know. And, the presumptions we make can be the things that kill you. So I'd rather assume too much or question too much, rather. I mean, use reasonable assumptions and figure out what's going on. So I hope you're okay out there, and I'm trying to give you information that's useful. New York is going to have certain problems. One thing to be very mindful of is air supplies. If you are in a building that shares air, make sure you're covering your filters. That's been one of the biggest ways this has spread is through air conditioning vents. So if you have any vents that will bring air in to you from other enclosed spaces, that is a major risk. And if you have to seal them off and open up a window, you will be glad you did so. Definitely want to do that. Illinois closed their schools. Good to hear this. So let's see. Have people been diagnosed with HIV after getting coronavirus, and how does the HIV insert into the virus act on people? Great question. I have not heard of any cases of people being diagnosed with HIV, although we do not know, because it's a long-term question, what the immunosuppressive function of COVID might be. It's important to remember with HIV, it actually took them a very long time to separate that out from the AIDS virus. And there's a long and complicated history about what was taught with that. It's worth looking into. It took many years for them to figure that out. So what the HIV spike protein does, as I've had it explained to me, the thing about viruses is it's basically code covered by a code of proteins and lipids, that's fats, that basically kind of floats around like a little bubble trying to find ways to poke into your cell wall. Because the problem is internally in the molecular biology, what you want to do is you want to have your cell wall be your defense. So when people ask why do diabetics, for instance, have problems fighting off diseases, as it turns out, what happens is the production of insulin pokes holes in the cell wall where these bigger substances can get in. Like everything else in life, it's all about membranes and surfaces of continuity, right? So your skin protects your organs. The cell wall protects the cell, and certain diseases create larger openings in the cell wall that allow viruses, which are larger molecules, to enter without having extra support. But in the case of this, what it looks for is a receptor that's traveling within the bloodstream or whatever medium. That's the ACE2 receptor. It pokes in there, connects like a key into a lock, and then once it does, and it opens the lock, the virus, which was inside, think of it like a Trojan horse, comes into the cell, looks for the cellular construction, assembly, things like your mitochondria, things that are producing RNA, and they're going in there and they're reproducing itself, and it hijacks the cell, blows it up, and then it uses its cell wall. Like if you were on the battlefield and you attack someone and you pick up a shield from a fallen foe, that's the same way kind of how the virology of it works. And yes, that's an oversimplification. and Tom's crazy metaphors. But I wanted to explain that. So what's the HIV insert do? It goes in there and it seems effective, especially effective at working not just on the lungs and the epithelial walls in the bloodstream, in the veins and whatnot. It really works on the antibodies as well. So the virus can actually potentially invade the antibodies, if I understand it right. And that's the immunosuppressive function. And then the virus tries to get past the membrane that connects the blood-brain nervous system, which is a very rich environment for the virus to exist in. And it likes it because it's like being in the basement. It allows you to hide from the active antibody and interferon, which is just basically a bunch of little self-destruct bombs going around through the different cells. It's amazing how much war really prepares you. The study of military history is actually a great thing for understanding virology. I didn't think it'd be so useful, but it's actually much more fascinating. I wish scientists were better at telling narratives than they were about making big words for things. But it's actually a really interesting world and something worth talking about. Karina asks, how are other places handling youth in detention and the people who work with them? I don't really know that there's a consistent thing. One of the problems across countries has been not having supplies and protection for prisoners. In Iran, as we reported, they paroled a lot of the prisoners. In Italy, they had a prisoner enrolled. In the United States, it's going to be a major issue because you have a lot of people in close quarters with a massive shortage. I don't know what they're going to do with that, as well as people in group homes and in some of these environments. I mean, hopefully they're being isolated, but I guess it really depends on the behavior of the guards and other medical personnel. And that's one of the things that would be really concerning is that if medical personnel are not getting proper equipment or protection, or say a nurse, for instance, who maybe moonlights there, goes there once a week, once a month to a prison, in that population, this is going to spread like crazy. So for the people who run institutions, you need to be really mindful of the testing of people coming in from the outside and try to protect the community that's in there. It's a great question for anyone who's in a situation, including nursing homes, because that's why they spread so quickly. One person comes in, you could have, and I'll tell you a way it could happen, right, that you wouldn't necessarily think of, that is actually pretty bad. You have a paramedic, let's say, that's going out and doing some shifts, but they're not protecting. They pick up someone with respiratory distress. That person has coronavirus. Next thing they do is they go to a nursing home because someone has a stroke. They go and meet with orderlies there. They get the orderly sick as an asymptomatic healthy carrier, and you get into a nursing home. Boom, you have a cluster of really sick people who can't defend themselves. And so I'm glad that President Trump and others have been putting the emphasis on protecting those sorts of vulnerable populations, because they're going to have monitored access and real carefulness and thought to what you do it. One of the things that, really is a way of looking at that too, just in a more localized level, is the relationship between grandkids and grandparents. A lot of times that's a real big thing. Kids are asymptomatic spreaders going through schools. I'm glad schools are shutting down in so many places, and I guarantee you it's that concern that's directly behind it, not because they'll get their parents sick, but maybe you have a grandparent involved in daycare, especially if you still have people who have to work. I mean, this is one of the reasons why they need to start having everyone work from home, even if you have to subsidize people for a while. If you have both parents working and they have the kids stay with a grandparent and the kids still go to school, then you are putting the highest spread population by percentage with the highest threat population by percentage. And that's where some really bad things happen. Let's hope that doesn't happen. And you have to be really thoughtful about who are threats and what are out there. And if you don't know what someone's done, they're a threat. I mean, that's the whole theory of quarantine, right? I mean, you are willing to take certain threats. And at this point, we can laugh about it a little bit. But a month from now, when you're dealing with a 1 in 100 to 1 in 10 risk of getting sick, if you have to do something, you better think very carefully. And that's why I've always said you have to plan how not to play with this. Okay, let's see. My daughter's health professional graduate school will not close at this point. Did make a ton of changes, but won't institute 100% online. Well, I would hope that, if I remember right, you're in Illinois, that the governor there will begin changing that, where the state will mandate it. I suspect in a week that will actually go. Let's see. GAS in Tennessee is almost gone, writes Angie. So, yeah, I'm GAS. I've been reading so many medical things. I literally read that as a friggin' acronym, GAS. Gas is almost gone in Tennessee. That's interesting. I had no idea that was an issue. Gas is pretty plentiful in other places. Oh, Lordy, I need a drink. Does anyone else need a drink? Tom Kaczynski, Coronavirus Central Unscripted, 1 hour in, and I am gassed. I just, I've been staring at so many documents. I literally am reading words that are not there. Apple Pie, good to see you. Angela, good to see you. Hi from Stanwood, Washington. Stores are finally starting to look ransacked. Business at my work is down 60 to 70%. School is out till at least April 24th. I wish my boss would close the restaurant. I hope he does too. Eventually, when he's not making money, you know what? If you have a skinflint boss, no offense to those who are bosses around here, show how much more the bills to stay open are costing him than the ability there. Or talk, if you're really in an important position, see if you could get the renter the if you don't own the property, is get them to suspend the rent cost or something, and maybe you can make something happen. I mean, it's not impossible. Or just make sure you put stories there every day where they'll see it. I mean, I know it's going to take a little bit of subterfuge. Keep at it. Let's see. Thanks for all your work. It just may be saving lives. I hope so. I'm trying, man. I've been told that a lot of people feel a lot safer. We won't know how much good it did, but I mean, I heard this great story. There was this lady in Ohio who was telling me she's the head of some nonprofit, and they've got their whole community starting to plan, be prepared. And that's what it's going to take, man. The people who are succeeding in this are not just the preppers who are hiding in the closet, but the people who are taking the knowledge, communicating locally, getting people engaged and involved, and recognizing that you can just as easily keep out what you don't want as trying to keep yourself in. There's both parts of that equation. You need to cover both of them. All right. Hubby's driving home from his Tennessee office now, has Chicago and Nashville offices. I'm glad he's going online. Anyone else notice the huge price jump in antibiotics? Ciftanir was under $20 2 months ago, 107 today. Yeah, I did notice that because we saw that with Malarone, which is used as an anti-babesia drug. I saw it jump triple 2 months ago. And I've had a pharmacist friend keeping an eye on things for that. Yeah, drug shortages are going to be a thing. I hope things work out with China, that they're helpful with us. I wouldn't count on it, and even if they try to be, I mean, in the best case scenario, if they can produce at some percentage, the whole world is going to have demand, and you have to wonder who are they going to help first? Probably their allies and friends. Especially if they're looking at it from that perspective, as the state has sort of taken control of industries there. So I wouldn't count on a lot of support for a while, even in the best of situations. And, I don't know what deals exist. I don't know. I mean, obviously, the U.S. has a lot of carrots and sticks, and the Chinese economy need people to buy things to go ahead and come around. But on the other hand, the Chinese are not stupid people, and they're going to realize that people aren't going to want to have goods made there as much in the future. So would it be advantageous to help the U.S. get through this easy or get through it hard? If the U.S. ends up going down because of a supply chain shortage, say that we don't have medicine and we don't have the ability to produce it and China causes it, well, that might lead to a war when half of America is sick and China can retake Taiwan. Is that a very cynical observation? Yes. Do policymakers think this way? You bet they do. So let's keep an eye on that. Douglas Nickerson, good to see you. I am in Boston. Grocery stores are pretty wiped out. I've heard that from Boston. Hopefully you guys will be okay. Hopefully you like the show today. I really went into Boston. I got dear friends. I have in-laws who live over there and definitely wanted to help with that. So, just refilled my 3-month supply of hydroxychloroquine. that is chloroquine. That is awesome. Good for you. Sorry to hear about your expenses, though, Angela. That's good. Hydroxy, it's a sort of I mean, as you would think of hydroxy, right? Water. It's just a different version. In the United States, they have different versions for various reasons. What gatherings beyond immediate family would you consider participating in? Writes Alex. What you need to know if you're going to meet with someone is where those people have been. I will give you an example. We have some dear friends of ours who are preppers and homesteaders who live up here in Maine. I know they're sitting on their farm going nowhere. They know we're sitting in the house going nowhere. So if they come over here and we go over there, we feel relatively safe. Build your bubble of security, and in fact, use it as a carrot to get people in there and say, hey, you want to be part of this bubble? We're the ones who are going to make it. If you have to have a prep party, that wouldn't have been a terrible idea. In fact, I kind of wish I would have thought of it a couple of weeks ago, but people weren't ready for that. And then say, we're still early enough. If you have people who will quarantine and you're not in an exceptionally high-risk population, say, hey, if you do this, we'll have a party to celebrate you having 30 days of food. This is an adventure. I mean, let's be honest. How many of you, okay, this is terrible, but I'm sure there are a number of you that don't necessarily love your day-to-day work. I worked in a corporate environment for many years, and everything you've seen in office space is true, and then some. So, make it an adventure, enjoy it. There's a break in life where you have a chance to do something different and take, chances that have meaning in your life. And if you survive it, it's an incredible confidence building experience that will make you a better and more aware person. This, philosophically speaking, all you have as choices in life is not what happens to you, but how you're going to respond to it. You could be pissed off, angry, hurt, sad, and all those things, and we all are at times. Or you could be happy, engaged, successful, trying to do that, and you have to take the choice how you're going to take it. Not that it takes away the pain anymore, but that's ultimately all you have is the choice between contentment and despair, and to try to make the best of things. So let's do it. Let's have some fun with this. That's what I do with this show. That's why I'm dressed up, like I just walked out of the Springfield nuclear factory, right? Mm. And I do take chances. I should shave the beard, but I don't know. I've come to like it. I've become fond of it. Okay, let me get a breath here. Let's see. Have you seen any research about people who are already on biologics that they're using to treat the coronavirus do better if they contact the virus? I don't remember seeing any of those Actemra, Humira. So I don't have any research on this, but what I will say, if you want to do research, anything that kind of worked for SARS has had some efficacy with this, as well as another different various ranges of viruses. A lot of antiviral drugs basically operate by a similar principle, which is they're trying to make it difficult for the virus in your body to connect with the cells. So most antivirals like remdesivir, trifonavir, all those things, what they're doing is they're basically putting decoys in there so that the viruses connect to the wrong things. What chloroquine and things in that class are doing is they're basically jimmying the lock to the cells so nothing else can get in there. Any of these methods do work because even though viruses will succeed, like you put decoys out there, some will still get through. But what you're really trying to do is buy your body time so your immune system can A, produce enough cells to survive, while it's B, killing off the cells that are sick that will exist. Those are interferons, take them out. That's what your leukocytes do, and your lymphocytes, they help with those processes. And other than that, you're going to have just time to do that. And why older people are a problem with this is they have weakened immune systems just because you have cell death. And as you've maybe noticed, old people get smaller, shorter, different things change on them. And that's just that your body doesn't produce cells so quickly. Okay, what do we got here? I have alternative treatment methods. Malarone, cost the same. I'm hearing rumors that California will close interstate travel borders in 72 hours. There are a lot of rumors, a ton of rumors out there saying travel is going to be shut down in different states Sunday and Monday. There are rumors floating around like crazy in New York, Massachusetts, Washington, and California. And given that, I wouldn't be surprised if Oregon's in that list as well. Those are the states I've heard about. I do think someone's going to have to pull the trigger first. I've thought Seattle might be it. New York City could be it. Boston has been really aggressive going ahead. I read two different rumors that Charlie Baker's thinking of doing it up there, or perhaps in California. When the hints will be when you start seeing the National Guard trucks and all those videos of them lined up. If you're Californians on I-40, I-10, I-15, I mean, there's really not that many ways out of your state as for all the people you have there. If you shut off, 8, 10, 15, 40, and you can do those closer, 70 and 80, and and 5, you've basically shut off all the major interstates. And then if you add 101 and 95, 93, you probably have pretty much everything you want out of there. So I don't know. Yeah, you could definitely see it happen. And will it happen? I don't know. I don't think they're prepared for that yet. I think they're going to give you a little more time, but I could be wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised as early as Monday to see quarantines. And what that means is I hear this is going to be a soft quarantine where they're going to say that it's mandatory, but they're not going to start by throwing people in jail. Because once people start getting, $1,000 fines for breaking quarantines, people are going to rage like crazy. But they'll start by warming people up to the idea and try to hope probably for public shaming of those, which we should do, by the way, who break quarantine, to put people in their line, because people are going to have last minute needs that they didn't anticipate. And unless the government is prepared and publicly acknowledging they're willing to do it independent of financial costs, that's going to continue. Okay, let's see. What's with these people in hazmat suits spraying down the streets and buildings in Italy? Is it just for show? So what they claim they were doing in China, and I'll put my, let me put this in here so you have my email because you asked me to do that before I forget, because I forget everything. I'm like a parakeet at this point. Bum, 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 bum. What's with these people in hazmat suits spraying down streets and buildings in Italy? This was started in China. What we think, I don't know what the exact mix is, but we actually think it's probably bleach. What they were having a problem with is that this was aerosolized and that the virus was lingering in the air for up to 3 hours of a median half-life. And so they put the heavier disinfecting particles and spray them everywhere to both A, disinfect surfaces where this can survive for a couple days, and B, bring the particles out of the air. So that's what that's really about. And because it does seem to be existing in different places. And it's so when you see that, don't be surprised if you don't see that level here. In fact, the MTA in New York has already begun doing something a little bit similar in terms of how much they're wiping down the subway cars. So they're anticipating this. Okay, let's see what. Oh man, you see, I gotta go back up here. Scroll this. Okay, and you guys ask really good questions here. Boom, 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 boom. Hopefully, I'm giving you good answers. But we're gonna go through here. Do I have mobile deposit? Yeah, if you guys have questions, talk to Dana. She'll help you out. She runs the money at this point. I just talk. But we will have something here. Does zinc alone do anything? Michael asks. Yes, it does. So what it does is zinc basically. Here's why zinc works in terms of what it does with chloroquine. Chloroquine wedges home open the cell, and it ends up being chemically suitable to bond with zinc. You remember those old little Bohr, icons where you had, the little electrons going around the proton? Zinc likes to get in there, and zinc basically changes the pH level around it in its near area that make an environment that's inhospitable to viruses. Remember, we talked about that protein coat. What it basically kind of does is it dissolves the protein coat. So yes, zinc does have some value. Zinc lozenges will help. Will they keep you safe? No, but they do have a mild antiviral component that may have some efficacy. However, if you have it, unless you have a huge amount, what I would probably recommend is that you keep it. So if you do start getting sick, and if all you have is zinc, it's a lot better than nothing. It won't hurt you. It will help you. And if you have any questions, there's a lot of information out there about it. So definitely a good thing to have. Yeah, and there are combinations. You have to look at this, and there's a lot of research out there, and ask people what they're doing. In fact, go into the coronavirus central chat at t.me. There's people working on it. You can get you can get coronavirus from inhaling a hot fart from someone who has it. Sharticles are a thing. I hate to tell you, it could happen. So are poop flumes. Be careful in bathrooms, man. The one thing that I would recommend to people that no one else is saying is watch out for public restrooms. They are going to be hotbeds of where things can go wrong. Because if someone's in there who has this, they go to the bathroom, they flush, it goes up, you go in the stall, might look clean, you might be walking into a cloud you never expected. And I'm wondering if that's a means of transmission. I know it's ugly. I apologize for the description, but it is the truth. Mm-hmm. So good to see you, Omegas. Glad. I hope things are good in Oklahoma. She is going to work wearing an N95. They're either going to change the policy or get fired. Good for her. And you know what? If they fire her, you sue them. You sue the hell out of them. There'll be a lot of lawyers, ambulance chasers. They love to sue hospitals. They have money. Do not let your Billy go. In fact, if they do that, say you can. If your wife is worried about it, and you want to be nice about it. Say you've consulted with an attorney and say that if you fire me, the next conversation will be from the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe. Be ready for it. What do we got here? Okay. What do we got here? I'm just going to remove that person here. Yeah, I mean, and try to be nice in here. I'm reading this one person in the comments. I'm going to delete things that are, people have different ideas, but be respectful, please. The only reason why I'm taking them is I'm actually reading your comments real fast here. Let's see. Good to see you, Landon. Hope all is well up there in the what is Ohio? Or not Ohio, Idaho. You guys have all those, was it boysenberries, huckleberries? What the hell's the thing up there? The potato state, but that's not what you're called. The gem state, isn't that what it's called? The lines at the supermarkets in Idaho stretch from the deli to the back of the registers. People are freaking out, and we don't even have any official cases yet. Well, at least they're freaking out beforehand. That's actually good. Let's see, 2 masks per shift. I did. Let's see, how do I do this? Report. I'll have to figure out how to do this. Yeah, the person who's here who is causing some problems. I'm trying to delete these things, but I don't know how to delete the person. Let's see, report harassment. Okay, choose one. Let's see. This is harassing someone else. No, I don't want to do that. Damn it. Okay, I'm just trying to fix something. I've never moderated this crap before, so I apologize for that. I'm just reading here. Eki, good to see you. Hope all is well here, and that is good. Okay, let's see. Just reading real fast. They're only good for max of 40 to 50 minutes. We talk about the masks. They'll last for a little while. Also, as a Californian, what would you say about surfing? Well, if you have to go exercise, going out where there's a lot of fresh air will be good, and you're probably not so likely to get it while you're out there all by yourself. I've never really thought about that, but I did tell someone who was utterly determined to go out that I said you're much better off going out for a walk than you were going for a gym. But if you're going to go somewhere where you're going to be breathing air that other people were breathing, I would be very careful about that. I don't know about the transmissibility of the virus in water. Like if you went in a swimming pool, obviously the ocean you would think would go ahead and denature that. I would think your odds would be very low, but I've never really thought about it. I'm just not a surfer. Okay. I only have 2 N95 masks, asked Michael Kahn. Should I just reuse them? Will the virus stick to the outside of the mask? Is there a way to sterilize them daily? I would say the easiest way, if you have no other option, alternate them different days if you have to go out there. But if you let them sit for 2 to 3 days, you shouldn't have aerosolized matter on it. They were still doing some research about what the ability for droplets are. But you are trying to protect yourself. Better to have something than nothing. You can reuse them to a certain extent. I've been saying historically, give yourself 10 days. So that is not a bad way to do that. So let's see. We're talking about beans. And actually, tell me some things. Like, what is your little thing you couldn't do without in your collection? I'm curious. We all have things. Like Dana and I have strategically hidden bags of M&Ms around the house because that's her jam. You know. Let's see. Omegas writes, last 36 hours, I've seen a ton of businesses reacting to the NBA infections. Yeah, I'm glad that the NBA, NCAA, NHL, what else we have, MLB, all of them are canceling things. It really does help. It gets people aware. And honestly, it's got to be too weird going in front of a stadium where there's no one there. The whole point of having these events is to make money for them. So why put your players at risk for something that puts them at it was a smart decision for everyone involved. And while I would like some entertainment from time to time, I'm sure we can figure out ways to have that. I mean, it's not like we lack for different distractions, right? Go play a game or something, Or you know what? Let me tell you, this is the greatest thing. You have the opportunity to spend time around people. Say you're in quarantine with your family. When I was a kid, I loved going up to the cabin with my parents and my brother, and we'd go up there and play rummy and we'd do things. Get to know someone. So, take a step back. We run around like crazy people. Maybe we can come out of this with better life-work balance, We really do. So what else we got here? Fresh gear. What can I do here? All right. Okay. Oh, good. I can do that. Good. All right. I am in Uruguay. It's in surrounding countries. I expect it tomorrow. I do have a secure country relation. Yeah. One of the things that I've seen is a lot of people think that summer is going to save them from this. It might bring a small drop, but this isn't going to go away. And a lot of people who studied this are very concerned if it follows an infection pattern like the flu. And it may or it may not, but we will see a reinfection, potentially a big spike in October. And the idea that you can only get this once and then the antibodies will protect you may or may not be true. We've seen certainly cases where people have been reinfected, or at least they've tested negative and shown as infected. So is it possible you're going to get reinfected a second time, and could it do other damage? Yes. Will we have protocols in place that are better? Hopefully. And then the idea that COVID's going to be gone is very presumptuous. Absent a vaccine, which I'm questionable if we will get, I don't think it's going to be gone. So we may have to deal with this on a recurring basis. And that requires us to restructure our society. We either rise to that challenge and change our society, or it destroys our society. And then we as people are going to build new societies that deal with this. Whichever way it is, be ready for it. But it's going to be a major challenge. And I suspect if the pattern I'm looking at is right, and I had to guess, and this is a guess, not a prediction, It's that this is going to be recurrent, and that antibodies such as form in the blood are only going to last a certain length of time, and then you will be eligible for reinfection. Or keep in mind, a divergent strain may emerge that is equally able to get you sick. We already know there are two primary strains with this. There's nothing that precludes seeing more of them, either through mutations, which I think is actually slightly less likely, or the genetic recombination structure that we've reported on, which it could just be random, or it could be a sort of smart key, and I'm not sure which. It kind of depends if you think this is bioengineered or not. And that's been one of the really interesting subtexts. I talked about it on the show today. The Chinese are starting to maybe try to blame and say the Americans brought this to them. The Americans, there's a lot of politicians saying we want to blame the Chinese, and we don't really know what happened. I mean, they said, interestingly, President Trump says that they know what happened and we know what happened, but he didn't say to the public what happened, and the media, being vacant as usual, didn't think to ask that question. I would love to have President Trump talk about what the expectations are from the government, what happened, or at least be on the record of saying something rather than these sort of opaque answers, because where this came from really plays a large role in what our suppositions are about it. If this is truly natural and they believe that, then that has certain limitations we would expect to be applicable. Whereas if this is bioengineered, we need to throw a lot of our assumptions out. All right. Let's see. Do I have Thank you for the updates. I'm just going through real fast, trying to catch up with where you guys are at. Would leaving them in the sun help a little bit? It could, if they were in an area where they weren't going to be exposed. Yeah, sun will help. Heat will help with this. So absolutely, I think that's it. Let's see. I think it needs to be UVC. That's correct. Let's see. Lowering the quality. Put it at 480. Yeah, I apologize if this doesn't work here. Put a shoe on Tom's head. You guys want a shoe on my head? That's terrible. Y'all are mean. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. I'm almost caught up with where you are here. My state closed all public schools down in Louisiana. Yeah, your schools are going to get closed down, man. I'm just telling you here. So good to see you here. Make the insurance companies. Time for a drinking game. So, I thought about what a Corona drinking game would be. You'd have to use one shot of alcohol to disinfect your hands and one shot of alcohol to go ahead and take a drink. What do you think? That should be the Corona game. A little here, a little there. You spritz it around. That's a good way to do it. All right. Steve writes, Boston Public Schools custodian here. Just got the message. Last day of school is Monday, and we will be off till April 27th. So that's a hell of a thing. So, and I will say Boston's been ahead. Thank you for sharing that, Steve. That's a great piece of information. So they are going ahead, and they are suggesting in Boston that they think they're going to have to be out for 7 weeks. So they're pretty serious about trying to shut this down in Massachusetts. And they would be. They got all the Harvard epidemiologists out there looking at this who actually understand how screwed we are. So I'm glad that they're doing that. I'm glad they're getting that information out there. Very good. And thank you for sharing that. And I suspect we will see the suburbs do the same thing around that in Massachusetts. A lot of West cities are very big cities that don't have as many suburbs, whereas, in the East, you have a ton of little towns all around. Angela writes, a man snuck out of a quarantine in Kent, Washington, stole some boxes, stole a bus, and I'm not sure if he's been caught. Awesome, man. And this is what you're going to have. People are going to act like jerks, and we're going to have to deal with that. And a lot of that is just a lack of preparedness, and a lot of it's, they need to have confidence that their needs will be met. I mean, I hate to say that we have to sort of babysit people, but ultimately we do one of two things. We let nature take care of those people and deal with the consequences of those who did not prepare for that, which might happen anyway, to be fair, or we have to have governments literally figure out how to take care of the worst of us long enough. And I don't mean that in a negative way in that sense. I just mean that people who cannot and will not take responsibility and survive. The governments have a big problem, and I'm not making light of it. How you deal with that, especially as the idea that you're going to take care of the people who are worst off is going to piss off other people and what you're having to do. Nonetheless, even the healthy need to recognize that we're only as strong as our weakest link at this point. And Lord knows I hate using lines like that, given my own politics. But the reality is any one of us is a carrier. Any one of us is a threat. And if you let people wander around like that, you're going to have issues. We're not going to do what China did, which is they threw them in the fire, maybe. And I'm not advocating that in any way, shape, or form, but, or Iran or even the UK, they're talking about just letting them die. The United States just ain't that society. If we fail, maybe we become something different, but we'll see what happens. And it's those sort of fears I have that really are at the heart of why I think this might get very bad, but we'll see. I mean, tonight's a positive night. There was some good news. They're moving forward in ways that are better. It's not enough. They need to be active and not reactive. But I will hold my criticism from being really rough until if we don't have quarantines in place in most places by next Monday, I'm going to come on and be a real bastard on the radio that day. And I'm going to say how terrible this is. They're not doing it. I'm going to call out every member of Congress by name. I might just read all of their stupid names and say, you're a piece of crap. That might be the whole show on that Monday. So let's hope not. 3 hours in the air outside, Michael, just so you know. Yeah, and let me tell you something. A lot of these schools that are saying that it's going to be 2 weeks, it's not going to be 2 weeks. Once they shut it down, they're going to shut it down for at least 6 weeks. That's going to be the best case, and that probably won't be long enough here. So MedTram says it's important not to be deficient in zinc. Yeah, I mean, there is a lot to be said for you. Go ahead and put that through there. And what is it? It's, I want to say it's 500 milligrams. Dana will know. She might put it in there. So I miss the beach now. Sardines. I remember. Oh, Cadbury eggs. Oh, I wish I had Cadbury eggs. That sounds good. Sardines, a yummy dessert. What else we got here? M&M's, Skittles. Yeah, by the way, this is not what you should be eating, but whatever. Shoe on head's an old meme. That's right. Am I wearing? Of course I'm wearing a hazmat suit. Why would I wear a hazmat suit, right? Do you guys like the hazmat suit? I did it, but I mean, for those who weren't here at the beginning of the chat, I did this really funny. And I'm looking for where I put my mask, so much for situational awareness. I literally came out here, and this is like I wasn't wearing the other side's uniform, right? Like for those who know my politics a little bit, not that this is about this, but I was rocking the hazmat suit. And let me tell you one thing, since we're just talking here, with masks, if you've never used the mask with a ventilator in it, breathing in a negative pressure environment is really friggin' difficult because you end up feeling like you're not getting enough oxygen. And if I put on, I could put on my my gas mask, and maybe I will at some point just for amusement. It's actually really hard to do this. So get in the habit I know I got this Tyvek thing. I wanted to take this stupid sticker off, but I thought it would rip the prep. But yeah, no, I've come from the planet, Maine, right? And I'm ready for this. Although I got to get a good tight seal, which I won't get because I honestly don't have my right things on here. But I came out literally looking like this today, right? This is how we did the show. I had gloves on, which I'm not going to put on again. But just for the purposes of amusement, for everyone that was here, and for the fact that you guys see it, I put my big hat on so I could look like I just walked out of Rick Moranis skit from way, way back when. This was literally the look I was rocking, And oddly enough, I look a lot like a snowmobiler. There are a lot of people who go around looking like this. Hey, man, I'm coming from Boston for the weekend. So, yeah, I do look like a Space Force member when I do that. Now I look like a painter. Now I look like a terrorist. Now I look like a sick person. And now I look like an idiot with a microphone. And that's all I am. But, yeah, it was a fun show. We had a lot of fun with it today. So, had a good time going for an hour and a half. Some advice to you guys. What you need to do is that you really want to make sure you have your preps in line. Assume you're going to have to be in place for. I've said 30 days. What I've seen, what's out there, what Dr. Fauci said. If you're able to ride out 60 to 90 days, I think if things go well, you'll be okay. If things go badly, the amount of food you're going to need is probably not the amount you can prep for in this amount of time. And we're going to have all sorts of other things to talk about. If things really go to hell, if they really, really go to hell, I'll try to give advice to how to survive and organize things in area and do things like that. Let's pray that we don't have to have those conversations. You're not going to enjoy them. I mean, it'll be a different world, but do step into the new world. Realize that COVID changes things. And the more of us who manage to do so intelligently now, the more we can kind of stay in something that's familiar to us, protect our loved ones, protect those we care about, and have a much better experience through this whole environment. And in the meantime, to be honest with you, there's not much else most of us can do but watch. It really isn't in our hands other than how we can help people become aware, become prepared. I realize with resources, you can't anticipate everyone. Every one of us probably has someone we're looking out for who don't care. If you can do that, you have it in your heart and mind to do it, especially blood relatives. We all have one of them, right? Go ahead and do that. And hopefully you get through this okay. And be just smart about your chances. Be aware. Do those sorts of things. And I think you'll do good with that. What I will say here is at the end of it, I'm just going to say a prayer real fast. Heavenly Father, I hope for the safety of everyone in this chat, everyone who watches this video, and all the people out there who are trying to survive this. We are going to be the ones that are going to be responsible for creating a new world out of this, and that hopefully we make it a good one, and we don't allow those who have bad visions to be the ones who decide what the future looks like. So I think that's a pretty good way to put it. I'll leave it at that. God bless you guys. If there's any last minute questions or items you want to mention, you now have, I'll give you 2 minutes before I cut off. And then I'm going to go up there and rest. And then I get up and do it again in the morning. We'll see how well I can pull that together, enjoy my Corona. I mean, unfortunately, I got work to do in the morning. Otherwise, I'd be enjoying much more libation tonight. But this is good enough. In fact, I didn't have a chance to even eat dinner yet. So I'm very much looking forward to that. But I want to say I'm grateful for all of you that you've been here. Let me make sure there's nothing else here. And I think we've hit the full point. So hopefully you guys enjoy Coronavirus Central. If you have questions, thoughts, ideas, concerns, t.me/Coronavirus Central. We are there. We're talking all the time here. Do I know the make model of my mask? Yes, I do. It is called, it's not a Vogue mask. They're called like an F1 or a G1. They're rated N99. It is more comfy than many, but the catch with it, it's called an RZ mask, actually. You can get these. I'll put it up close to the camera so you can actually see what it is, an RZ mesh mask. And the neat thing about these, in terms of how you use them, but you have to be mindful of it, is that you have replaceable filters on the inside, right? You can wash the surface, yes, and you can replace the filter. So practice our preps, right? We'll take this, open, pull this out. Just a very simple twist so you can see what I'm doing. And I elected to get these because I wanted to be able to wash it. Your washing machine can be a prep for you. So we'll take this out. This is the carbon filter. And then the other thing, if you're using something like this, though, you need to be really aware of how long your filters last. And this is actually something used for a more involved job. But I got it because it's rated to an N99, right? So that's useful. And then I'm able to use this here, and then it puts the pressure thing. And I have like 30 different ones because I don't have to go out very much. I don't do it. But they are absolutely washable. Although if you really want to do it properly, you'd probably want to take this off. And I haven't looked at exactly of course, this damn thing's made in China, but it's been sitting on the shelf in a hardware store for a long time. So, but yeah, have this here, and put it on there, and it works pretty good. So I actually like them a lot. The only thing you have to be really careful with these is you're going to have to either wash them more, and you have to be really aware. But yeah, if you like RZ masks, I bet a lot of people aren't looking at these because they're not rated on the N99 and all those scales. But it has an active carbon filter. We'll put that in there so you can see. And that's rated to N99 quality. And I like this a lot better. The only thing in my review is it's not super comfy, is that we have a nose problem. So good question about the live streaming. I come on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays at 7 p.m. I usually swear that I'm going to, well, I don't know if they're sold out or not. I tell you the truth. I got them in my local hardware store because I went in there and I talked to the guys, and I live in rural Maine. I'm dating myself, but you think of the old Newhart show, that's literally what it is. I'm here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 p.m. And now I have to reassemble this damn thing. And hopefully I do it right. Let's see if I do it right. Because you want to, like I said, this is a good thing, practice your preps. And I haven't had to wear this out very much because I do have a Vogue mask, actually, because Dana's immunocompromised. And there's a funny story. You want to talk about bonding opportunities. I always give my wife a really hard time about going out because I hate wearing these stupid masks. I really do. I think it's ridiculous, and I wasn't afraid. But, life changes, and I've gone from being someone who was ignorant about things to being someone who took my health much more seriously. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's why you see countries like in Asia and South Korea, honestly, they just wear a lot of masks, and so they're much more successful. So I'm going to have to, obviously I'm flubbing this, so I got to figure out how this snaps in or how it twists it, because I hadn't taken this one off yet. There's a little groove in it, I think. Actually, I see how it has to twist. It's just, there's a snap there. Okay. See, you can hear it snap. So user error. I'm not going to do that in error. I mean, watching me build something is like watching a developmentally challenged child try to do something, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Respect to them. They have an excuse for it. I don't. So, yeah, I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 p.m. And if you have questions in between that's fine. If we have special events come out, I might come on, and we'll see. I mean, I don't assume that Coronavirus Central might not eventually get canceled, because the truth of it is we put out a lot of really good information, but we also put out information that at some point, if things go badly, the government might not want you to know. So if we're not on YouTube, we will be, we'll keep the podcast going at corona.castos.com as long as we can. And if Apple, iTunes, any of them shut us down, the RSS feed is there. Wow, we had a good day. 22,894 listens. So proud. We will be at Telegram. And if that goes down, I'll come wherever I can. We'll go on DLive. If the internet goes down, I have a ham radio. I'll learn how to use it. I probably won't have a license, but it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. And if there's literally no government to stop me, I guess they can't really get me in trouble. So that is going to be one of the things to be aware of. So if that comes out, we will do so, and I hope I will do that. But I got out early. There were respirators. There were other things. To be honest with you, I think an N95 is mostly sufficient if you're smart. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And unless you're in a really high-risk environment. And the trick is you don't want to be in a high-risk environment, because if you are, that's when you're going to get into trouble. So, open. I'm just totally not good at this. Anyway, okay, so I might eventually go on DLive. We'll see. I'm told to do that. But thank you guys for joining me. God bless. You guys have a very, very good night. And I will see you on Monday. And who knows? If I do special shows, one thing I should say, subscribe, notify, share. The more people who come over here, actually, the more often, maybe eventually I'll even do, I'd consider doing a weekend show if things get crazy and we're in quarantine, just because I'll have a lot more time. God bless you guys. Thank you. Keep people safe. Do what you can. All right. You guys have a good night. End stream.